Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel. Now, I'm not a big fan here for historical wargaming. Don't get me wrong. Bolt action, immensely amount of fun. Going to be doing a lot of that next month with the new edition coming out. But it's not something I really am a big fan of. Now, if you were to play me in bolt action, some game with objectives or, mass order, just a game as a game, Brits versus Germans, sort of that sort of thing, no problem. I would love it. But if I was to play a historical campaign based on real life events and the losers won, it would really bother me. It would, to a point, to be like, no, this isn't right. I can't do this. Like, why they were meant to lose? Why did you win? The history says you lost, and that would really bother me. And I know it sounds silly because it's just a game, and it is just a game, but it's just the way my brain works with history and stuff. And that's it. However, I am drawn to alternate timelines and divergent timelines. I really like the idea of what could have been. I know people have said when you do campaigns, maybe pretend it is a divergent timeline, like what could have been. But it's like, but it really happened. I know it happened. So, anyway, it's enough about waffling. So, today I'm going to talk about, alternate timelines, it's historical timelines, and in wargaming. Now, the two that come into mind most to me are obviously Wild West Exodus. I mean, come on, it's the one thing I talk about most than anything else on this channel lately because it's my favourite game. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And Conflict 47. I kind of like Conflict 47's idea as well, but I also like Robert Harris's Fatherland. If you ever get a chance to read that, it's basically the Nazis won. And now I don't know whether or not to add Fallout into this as well because, well, with Conflict 47 and Wild West Exodus, it's set in the past. The timeline and historical stuff happened in the past with people who existed then and, they lived and those sort of places. Where Fallout Wasteland Warfare is set in the future, well, it's based on an alternate timeline. Now, I'm not saying, that, it's kind of, how can I say it? It's kind of weird. Same with 40k as well, because they kind of have a divergent timeline-ish. But Fallout, because it takes place in the future, I don't think it really falls into this category. But to be fair, I would like to see some of the battles that, some of the things that came about during this historical time, during the Fallout universe. There is a lot there. It's a vastly interesting universe to look at. So, Fallout is Wasteland Warfare, and I might do for a different video about futurist games set in the future, because there's a lot of those. However, today it's about, twisting history, changing history. Now, I do like this. I really do. I think it's fascinating. I think it's absolutely fascinating. First things first, is because you see these historical characters that we have learned about in books, read about, studied, or, the area that they live in, all this stuff. We got this information and we look at it and we just well, okay, this is really cool. I'm a big fan of the Wild West. Apparently, people my age tend to go towards the Roman Empire. I went, no, yeehaw, I'm going to the Wild West. Yeehaw. Anyway, basically, that's where it went. And I think it's an interesting thing to see people like Abraham Lincoln and Billy the Kid, Jesse James, Wyatt Earp, all these people I've learned about and I enjoyed reading about as a child in this alternate timeline, and why Abraham Lincoln is still alive and fighting, and how what Morgan Earp being alive and having this new robotic body. And one of my favourite stories, if you get the chance, is written by Sarah Corkwell. It's a vignette on the War Cradle website, and it's basically basically a conversation between Doc Holliday and Doc Holliday is now got a mask which helps his tuberculosis, his TB, but it's shaved off his mustache, which really upset him. And it's about Wyatt Earp trying to explain why he did that, and he goes for all these excuses like, you're a good lawman, you're a good fighter, the people need you. And they have this interesting conversation. It's well worth reading. And basically, right at the end, Wyatt Earp admits the truth. And it was not about other people. It wasn't about saving people, helping people, that he was a good lawman. It was because Wyatt Earp didn't want to lose his friend. And that story is fantastic, and it really sets up a lot about Wild West Exodus, about how these people have changed from their historical way we see them to this new different way because of slight changes. Doc Holliday surviving and having this new mask has changed him, not to such a big degree. I've got to say, Sarah Corkow is a massive Doc Holliday fan, and she writes him really well. Go read Lazarus, fantastic book. But again, we just see these little things like Abraham Lincoln being alive, but everyone thinking he's dead, except the very few that fight alongside him, and how they have to keep this big secret up constantly, so it doesn't get out that Abraham Lincoln survived. Again, it's a really nice story, and it's something I really like. As for Conflict 47, I'm just getting into that now. I'm just reading it because there's a new edition coming out. Thanks, Warlord Games. 2 new editions I've got to look at straight away. And again, it's kind of interesting to see the war proceeding in this more science fiction way. It's not just the tanks that we know, like the Sherman, the Tiger, and stuff like that, but these new walkers, these new types of firepower, these new enemies, all this interesting stuff which really adds to it but never takes away from the actual World War II setting and what it was really about. Same with Wild West Exodus. While we've added everything, and this is one of the things I really like about alternate timelines, because they add all this cool stuff. It's things that are varied and just diverged from the timeline as we know it, but it keeps the core principle of that historical era in place. If you see Wild West Exodus, you can see it's a cowboy game. You can see there's Indians there, or Native Americans. There's the characters there. There's cowboys, outlaws. There's the Union. There's the Confederacy. All the main parts that made up the Wild West have remained, but there's been changes, such as instead of horses, they've got jet bikes and robot horses. It doesn't take away from the flavour. It adds more to it, but while keeping the core historical accuracy in place. Accuracy is a bit of a bad word there, but let's roll with it. Then there's like Conflict 47. It keeps a lot of the World War II stuff very, very accurate. It's very much rooted in the reality of World War II while adding more to it. So it's not really changing anything, but keeping it the same. It's really interesting, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. Anyway, what do you guys think on this? I like it. I like the idea. I am going to do a video on future war games. That'll be next week, which obviously is going to include 40k. Right, it's just going to have to happen. And Firefight and Fallout Wasteland Warfare. And I'll see you all in the next one. Of course, if you wish to save money on your wargaming, don't forget to check out down below is Wayland Games with free delivery after £20 and up to 20% off wargaming. There is also Forbidden Planet comics, DVDs, mangas, etc., etc. All that really cool stuff. There's my merchandise, stickers, cups, everything like that. My comics as well. If you want to see Little Red Riding Hood go ham on some cyborg Lovecraftian werewolves. There's Skyforge. Never forget Skyforge, good friend of mine. There is also Patreon because business. Bye bye.